So, you know what I love about TikTok? There's always tons of content to create from comments that are made. So there's this guy, I've never heard of him in my life. Slim Thug, I guess he's called. Slim Thug? Yeah, I guess Slim Thug. And he's saying that when they get robots to the point of being able to cook, clean, and be intimate, that'll be a great day. So, excuse me, my throat always in the morning during the winter months. So Slim Thug has decided that, of course there are women totally agreeing, and men agreeing that that a robot, aka rubber dolly with AI, is going to replace women. And women are agreeing. One woman said, "Great, we're glad you got the hint." The level of hate between the genders is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Do you realize that that is something that has been dropped into our laps and made to look as if it's our own collective decision, when it was actually very psyop to control the population? I hope that's known. I hope that's like obvious. Now it's interesting. I think because the glass is always half full in my book. And what do I mean? Well, the people that have that kind of level of consciousness, that actually want to go to their little corners and be alone and not populate the world with their own genetic code and their own basic ideas and hate on the opposite gender, aren't going to have, it looks like they don't want to have children, which is fine, whatever. And those who have a higher level of consciousness, 5D philosophies, generosity, compassion, some of them are going to have kids and some aren't. And that will be good. So, but this psyop that Slim Thug is saying, that, I can't get over it, that he can't wait till the robots get so good that they could cook, clean, and be intimate. I had a man come to me and said that he saw no difference between being intimate with a rubber doll or a woman. Apparently that's how bad sex was for him, because to say that means that he's admitting that he has had sex with people, well, with women who did not give, weren't good, intimately inept, didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And so, of course, it would be no better than being with a rubber dolly. Of course, that would be the same thing. So this concept that we've all embraced from the 4B movement, which is a problem in Korea, we've brought it into our shores as if that's the answer, instead of looking at things like P. Diddy and the Menendez case and the Catholic Church and other temples who have hidden pedos from society and shaming men from coming out to saying, I was a victim as a child, shit like that, which would create men who are unable to be coherent with their own emotional landscape. Because ultimately, all these problems that we see are derived from shaming, root chakra kidnapping, and things of that nature that have corrupted many masculines across the planet, clearly. And the issue with this is that women are going with the okie doke, because women have their own pain and their own trauma caused by same gender or opposite gender. Okay? I have many lives, and I've covered the gamuts from women who were abused, SA'd by their own mothers. So it's not just opposite gender. It's a sickness in society that has been perpetuated for generations with this silent pact that if you say anything, you will be blamed and shamed into silence. I have a very good friend born in 1947 who was being abused by her uncle for years, told her mother, yes, there was evidence, but told her mother, and her mother told her to shut up and stop saying those lies. What did we see with the Menendez brothers? Same thing. But what did we see in society? This is my second time talking about this. We saw the entire world laughing at the Menendez brothers who had exposed some of the darkest things any human being should expose to a psychologist in a private room, much less in the public arena. That's toxic shit. So this psyop, because if you don't think it's a psyop, I don't know where you've been. I'm not new to psyop conspiracy theories. Thank God I was raised by an amazing man. He had a lot of issues, but he was curious as fuck, brilliant and irreverent as fuck, and dinner table from Paris to London to Hong Kong. I was allowed to listen to these adult conversations, volleying back and forth with multiple types of people from all over the world about interesting things that people are now finally talking about. Let's just say that. So I grew up with this shit. And I'm very comfortable with it. Because it is. So this whole idea of women hating men and men hating women, and men just getting excited by their rubber dolly with the AI, and it looks like, well, she's good enough. She's good enough. She looks good enough. She's hot. And they're excited, and they're going with guys like Slim Thug, who's saying that publicly, and none of you are thinking, did he get paid to say that? Do you understand what the concept of influencer means? Influencer isn't just content creators with 1 million views getting paid to hustle a vacuum cleaner or an eyeliner. It's used for these kinds of fucking comments. And we better wake up to a lot of this shit and like sit back and think about, wait, am I being manipulated? Meanwhile, when you plant seeds to a very sluggish collective mind, and that's a perfect word for it, sluggish collective mindset of the matrix, it just spreads like wildfire. And suddenly young people, very young people who have also sluggish minds, jump on it like a steel trap and make it their own philosophy, not realizing that they just gobbled up rhetoric and propaganda like cake, and now they're part and they're spreading those poison seeds. The concept of standing with divine masculines and divine feminines is a very dangerous concept for the 1%. Because when a divine feminine is in her power, she is an incredible psychic. When men tap into their divine feminine inside, they become psychic. It is the intuitiveness controlled by the heart chakra to the third eye, into the crown, into the divine. When the divine masculine stands with his divine feminine, he can put into action in the material world at right timing, in right action that benefits his woman, for example, himself, of course, the family unit, tribe members, and eventually the collective. And why would they want that for any of us? Why would they want power couples who are divine masculines and feminines, power couples who are walking in light? And there's no other word for it. Honestly, that word light is beaten like a dog, but in their power of goodness and abundance, not just for themselves, but for everyone. Similarly to Joseph and Mary, for example, or Yeshua and Mary of Magdalena, Krishna, Radha, and many who walked, who we've long forgotten, because these manuscripts, scrolls, tablets, cuneiforms were destroyed. So there are people who were power couples of that ilk who we don't remember, sadly. So when you fall into this whole me against the man or man against the woman, you're falling into a psyop construction. And I think you better understand that. We are not in a matrix. And, in a way, I agree with you that we're not in a matrix, but for the purpose of discussion, because, my sweetheart, we aren't telepathic yet, and we are limited by the clunkiness of words. And let me just say, and Americans, this is not a European problem, Americans don't know how to speak in metaphoric language. French was created as a metaphoric language. Many European languages are created in metaphors. Right, Jennifer? You're here. Give me a thumbs up if you agree. And the American language is not metaphoric. So let's use the word matrix for the purpose of this conversation where psyops and psychology, manipulation. I dare you to watch the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. Bad title. The worst title for a fucking movie. This is the kind of shit where if you don't want anyone to watch a movie, call it Men Who Stare at Goats. But with what the fuck is his name? Just look it up. Watch the movie because it's actually based on a true story on remote viewing and other dastardly deeds. And how that was used by our governments, not just this government, many governments. So while everyone believes in the dog and pony show, and they're distracted by bullshit like gender wars, race wars, homophobia, just religious wars, famine, because most of us who have a half a brain and a half a heart can agree that famine, and war is not acceptable. We can all agree. I hope we can all agree on that. But, there are people actually bending the knee to God and yet applauding genos and famines and wars. So, I don't know. I'm just assuming that you and I are having a cup of tea together and we at least have this common understanding that those three, there are no words, cruel, barbaric behaviors are not to be accepted. But in the interim, just to add more shit to the soup, they've decided that gender war is acceptable. And so for you women and men who are playing this game, who actually think this is normal, think again. Think again. Because if you men are that angry, because I've seen beautiful men who have saved women, cats, dogs, children from fucked up situations. So you women who believe in this shit, you better back off. And I've seen men asking a girl for a date, not understanding that no, the first time is a no. And I've gone through it myself in my 20s, where I had to step into shops, call them, ask the merchant if I could use the phone to get my, at the time, fiancé to come rescue me from being abused because I had said no to a date or to give my phone number. So I've lived those realities. The reality of being saved by a man and being abused by a man. Okay? So, I'm not an ostrich in the sand. But what I do know is that what's happening right now is the most toxic shit. I didn't even know we would ever get this far. This is the most barbaric thing I've ever seen. We have enough problem on this planet without many of you spending fucking hours on the live talking about how men suck or how women suck. I don't know how you guys can actually believe this is normal. Metaphor forces the imagination. Earl Grey here. Earl Grey, my friend. I'm having Earl Grey as well. Spiritual power couples are too strong, will enlight too many. Exactly. I think in metaphors. Beautiful. True. Some reason the enemy attacks marriages, union, relationships from the giddy up Infinity Fox. Same reason the enemy attacks marriage, union, and relationships. They have done so. They have made it very unpleasant to have babies in some countries. They have made it very unpleasant to raise a child in some countries. And they have made it very easy in some countries, fun in some countries to have babies, to raise the babies, to spend time and bond with the babies. It's one thing. It's kind of like you get a job, right? You get an interview and they say, we don't micromanage. They're going to micromanage you. That's the sign that you're about to get micromanaged like you've never seen. Similarly, when a government says family values, you know they don't believe in it. They're spewing fucking words, because words without action attached to those words are meaningless words. They're just psyop. And I use the word psyop deliberately to trigger the fuck out of you. Why? Because I want you to think about how much these governments have manipulated us. And before there were governments, there were lords that controlled the serfs. And they controlled us through multiple things. You Europeans know exactly what I'm talking about. Like le droit du seigneur, the right of the Lord. And these subtle fuckeries of taking a woman's first night of marriage in the Lord's bed, impregnating her, not her husband, the Lord of the land who owned the land. It was called le droit du seigneur, the right of the Lord. This was done for damn near 1,000 years, all over Europe. And that right there it's a beginning of splitting a brand new marriage, where if she gets pregnant on that night, right? Whatever comes out could look like the Lord or the husband. It was a hit or miss. And if it looked like the Lord, imagine the psychological descent of the woman and the husband, knowing that this boy, the firstborn, or this girl, was not his child. This has been done by the 1%. They have been using different psyop shit for fucking centuries. So this is why it's important when we understand what's happening right now with the gender wars, because it's a gender war. And then they break it down into little pup tents of LGBTQ, XYZ, rainbow shit, into other things, into taking babies away, little 9-year-old kids away, if the mother and father have just found out that the school has been, these are demons, okay, that have been, influencing the child into thinking they want to be a boy or the opposite gender, is my point, and taking the child away. CPS has been a sword over many, many, many parents' head for years. I have a friend whose son was taken forcibly out of school in Florida, shipped back to California by the grandfather. Basically kidnapped. Basically, that's what happened. He was 10. And as a psychic, I was picking up on weird energy I will not discuss with you on this live because it's not appropriate and I don't want to shut down. But I was picking up on shit. And CPS was involved in that. The courts, family courts were involved in that. And the courts were expecting her to fly from Florida. She had 2 other kids. She didn't see her son or heard his voice for 3 years. And in those 3 years, the grandfather was saying that she didn't want him anymore. She didn't love him anymore. And the damage was real. And that kid went from being a normal weighted kid to being almost 150 pounds overweight. The kid was completely destroyed on all kinds of pharma. The kid's destroyed. And when he was able to be in custody with her, it lasted maybe, 4 months. And then he was ripped back out of the family. This is family courts. This is CPS. This is the fuckery that Allie Carter and P. Diddy and the tunnels. And my God, Kamala Harris talked about the tunnels. Like it was like the tunnels. I'm going to quote her. With walls as smooth as your living room. Video, not a quote, not in an article. The actual video. So it's almost like they don't give a shit if we know and how much we know. So you better know this. Anything that separates you from another race, another culture, another religion, another gender is a psyop move to divide and conquer. As long as you understand that, every step you take forward and you do your due diligence for God and country, to make sure that you call people out on their fucking myopic views of this propaganda, you'll be doing your mission, one of your missions in this incarnation. And to make sure to redirect people's attention to the real problem, which is what? Can I hear you say it or type it out? What? The 1%. Okay? This is going to be a very interesting 2 years. And the sooner you guys do your thing in reposting and creating, duetting, stitching, whatever the hell you want to do. I don't give a shit, but do something. And we reconnect with our divine masculines in any form. With our brothers, with our uncles, with our lovers, with our sons. Because if you're a mother and you hate men and you have a son, you better go into immediately go into therapy. Go into therapy, go into hypnotherapy, find out who hurt you. Which, was it your father, your grandfather? Okay, well, look at the Menendez. It's not like that shit's not happening in many, many households. It's not a money thing. It's a toxic thing. And as soon as we understand the root of this problem, then we will be unified and we will become dangerous. And that's what they don't want. That's why they use social media. Have you ever seen the commercial? It's a kind of a meme where they will show one reporter saying the exact same line and another reporter, and then it just shows all of these reporters saying the exact same sentence on a particular news story. Have you ever seen that? Similarly, that's exactly what they did with the Menendez brothers. This is our lesson, our takeaway from this trial, and these two trials, is not so much what happened with the trial and what happened to them, to be honest. It's what happened when they sat and testified, where they had never even spoken of it in that detail to their therapist, much less publicly, and the world laughed. And it went on for months, laughing and laughing. And Oprah with her big ass mouth. You know, the minute I heard them crying on the lawn, I just never believed in their tears ever again. Okay? The next show she did, maybe a year or two later, is all these men holding a picture of themselves as children at the age when their abuse first began. The chick is crazy. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with her. But we've known that for a while. Some of us have known it for 24 years. Some of us are just learning. Some of us have known it for 10 years. It doesn't matter. No one's competing as to when we knew she was full of shit. But now I think we can all agree. We all know. And she's just an example. And by the way, wink, wink, that's a woman. So now what? Can we all agree that there are multiple people on the planet that are complete assholes? Can we agree on that? I think we can. And it doesn't matter what gender they have. They have problems. They're sick in the head. And that's the end of it. Can we not take that understanding and then split it and generalize it into race, culture, religion, and gender? Can we do that? Because if we can do that as a collective, then we're going to fucking kick ass and claim this planet into the new earth a lot faster. If we don't do that as boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials, okay, if we don't do that and we play this game, the 4B movement, which is so psyop, it's the funniest shit I've ever seen. It's funny. Because it's by design. In the old days, it was very, very prevalent in the early 2000s of think tanks. There was a think tank in Pasadena, California called Idea Lab. I don't even know, I know it no longer exists, but it doesn't mean that it's not been absorbed by BlackRock and Vanguard. For example, things morph. So just because a name of a business that did X, Y, and Z no longer exists as that name, it doesn't mean it hasn't been absorbed into something bigger, more nefarious. And it's not paranoia, my friends, because that's the whole point of the Matrix. It just is. It's your free will. You either want to be part of the system and fall asleep and go back and regress and believe in and drink the Kool-Aid and enjoy it. Happy punch, berry punch, tropical punch, whatever you like, and enjoy the ride. Or you realize that we are the architects of a new age and we cannot be railroaded into the wrong direction. We have to stand strong. It's like the wind. They're showing me the wind pushing you in a certain direction, but it's going to push you into a ravine. And you know that this is not the way. So you have to push against the wind and literally fight, walking step by step against this blasting wind. Or your jacket is flapping, your pants are stuck against your thigh, but you know that if you let the wind push you, you will fall off the cliff. And so you walk against it until you come into safety, a safe place, the right direction. And that's exactly what's happening, actually. That's a metaphor, right? So let me read your comments. And this was just a quick live. They called, okay, hang on. I'm going to read from the beginning. Amen. Okay, beautiful. I had to deal with CPS when my kids was going through gender dysphoria, bullying, and couldn't go to school. Yes, that's to hypnotize us in a way. Same headline repetition. Exactly. They called it academic neglect, but I called it taking care of my kids' emotional needs. Exactly, Beth. I thought that, and seeing Oprah made me sick. Exactly. Right. She is quite a number, and all of them. Ellen DeGeneres. The list is so long. I mean, Ashton Kutcher. What the fuck? Do you know I applied for that company? What was it called? Thorn. I forgot what it was called, but I applied for it in 2018, and I'd been working in software sales, right? I was selling software and this and that. I'd been in the IT industry since 1998, so software and hardware. And I remember calling and really going after them. And now I realize they didn't want people like me. Can you imagine? They probably would have never interviewed Candace Owens or anyone with that kind of education and passion for child welfare. It looks like that's another psyop, and it's weird because some of these people look like they're for real. They really look that they're there to help us and help children. And then you find out things, and some of it is totally bullshit, toxic lies. People want to get attention, right? But some of it is not bullshit. It's not conspiracy, toxic theories. It's real shit. And people are putting their career on the line and have, And so we have to discern between, like, I read somewhere, I'm not going to talk about Columbus, Christopher Columbus's original, how do I put this without being politically incorrect? Because, everything's political, everything. That Christopher Columbus has a certain genealogy. And you could look up on Reuters. Put Christopher Columbus, what is his genealogy? And this is Reuters. This is not some fucking little backstreet magazine that's all about, talking shit to scare the populace. This is just Reuters. And it's not that I believe everything that's printed, but I chose Reuters over 5 other news sources that were saying the same thing. Why is this important? Because there's something that we've been lied about who controls us, and it's quite scary, and you need to go down that rabbit hole. There are people who have a certain philosophy that's connected to Baal, that goes back to Carthage, Baal. And there are books written by Martin Bernal called Black Athena. In other words, some of the things that you have to study would take maybe a year or two of you being a scholar to study and then to connect the lines. And there are people who have already done that for you. And so when it feels wrong or weird or creepy, you got to sit with that and see, is this true? And then do your research to go, who else is supporting that that's in the academe world, or that is somebody I would respect? Like, for example, when I first found out, and this was years ago, that Mary Magdalene was not a whore, right? Because I found out that Pope Benedict had combined the Mary who washed his feet, the Mary who was a whore, and Mary of Magdalene, who was from a wealthy family of Magdalena. Okay, and he combined those 3 Marys. Why? Well, because they thought women's souls were like cattle. The term "be great souls." Now, there are people who are Christian who, in fact, I remember a born-again Christian. I was so excited. I wanted to share that with him because he was born again and he was a pastor. And he went, "Oh no, I don't want to know, because if you tell me that, it will implode my whole belief in Christianity." I go, "Why would that? Are you that fragile?" I mean, I called him out. Are you that weak? That this truth would destroy your belief in Christ? I would think that you would love it even more. That you would feel connected to this incredible man who actually, what's the word I want to say? who sacrificed what could have been beautiful. There was a movie that came out in the 1970s called The Last Temptation of Christ. When it came out, I lived in New York City, Manhattan, and people were picketing that movie. It was picketed all over the world. Well, because it was about Christ on the cross, thinking about what it would have been like to love her, Mary Magdalene, to be with her, to have children with her while he was on the cross. This sent a wave of outrage across the world. I'm not kidding. Look it up. So between The Last Temptation of Christ and The Passion of Christ, which Mel Gibson's version of all the movies is the best, it's a fucking masterpiece. Why am I linking all these things that seem not connected? Because they're all fucking connected. Because in hiding, by omission, certain truths that would have made the divine couple feel connected and thrive in the centuries, right? What it did with these psyop moves was destroy our abilities to not have these gender wars. And these gender wars have been going on for, you think this is an invention of the 4B movement? This has been going on since Adam and Eve. And before that. You think it's new, this idea of marrying little underage little girls? It goes back. Abrahamic, Judeo-Christian religions. It goes even beyond that. Okay? A lot of this shit that we're really outraged about today is because we are a new society that is ascending. And none of the shit that was normalized 2,000-3,000 years ago is acceptable. We see it as barbaric. Just because it was happening doesn't mean it needs to happen anymore. If it ain't fixed, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, the system of what we call civilization has been pretty fucking toxic from the giddy up. Don't you think? And so what's happening is that the walls are collapsing of these illusions, and we're actually getting to a place of healing on a mass scale. Something we've never seen in recorded history, ever. There's nothing like this. You should be proud that you're part of it. And you should do all you can to step away with the psyop. They were doing psyop 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Same concept, different word. When you subjugate a people, you have to use various tactics. And they've been very successful. Adam and Eve is just a story. I'm sorry, feral friends. You think you're talking to someone who doesn't know that? I'm really, when you make a comment like that, think of who you speak to. Because you don't know the videos I've made on this parable. And you also haven't read the Sumerian tablets. I know that, or else you wouldn't have made such a comment. Okay? So when you hear the tone of my voice, it should tell you that I'm not a bimbo. And so you don't talk to another woman who sounds like me, like she doesn't know where the sun rises and sets. It's insulting. Okay? Sorry. I get offended by this bullshit. What else? CPS. Okay, so anyway, that's my point of view. I really don't, I don't like people who belittle other people, especially if you're like, it's like read the room. That's why quite many lives, I'll go on a live and I don't agree on something, but I don't disagree on publicly. Here's why. Because I don't know what the person's saying. I haven't heard the entire live. So I can't possibly make a judgment because it's taken out of context. My comment will be taken out of context. Okay? Unless it's progeno, at which point I don't give a fuck what the context is. But in subtle conversations like this, making a comment shows that you don't know how to debate or talk or most importantly, listen. Because it's taken out of context. So anyway, so any other comments that actually have something to add to the dialogue? Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you left. So long story short, see, I'm gonna say something to you guys. Don't let people piss on your fucking truth. ever. Okay? Don't ever let anyone do that. If they step on your toes, kicking them in the shin, hypothetically speaking. Because you need to always control your lives and your content. Now, when somebody is talking about another idea, like about the vac, pharma, food, vitamins, health, how to be healthy, and there's a debate going back and forth, that's a beautiful debate to have. A debate on homelessness and what's causing it. A debate on voting rights between new immigrants, illegal immigrants, and you as an American, for example. That's an interesting debate. And there are various points of views to see it with various points of perceptions based on experiences that can trigger people. There are a lot of people that have come here, quote unquote, illegally, that establish wonderful lives and are very much and adore the country, the host country they're in. So these kinds of debates, you definitely want to embrace them. But in terms of bullshit, I sorry, just no patience to explain to people anymore. I have none, and I don't owe anyone. I don't owe anyone that, and none. And by the way, none of you do either. Somebody comes in with don't let them get away with it. Call them out, and so they can leave or block them. But anyway, so the PSYOP movement that started way back when, is a reality. And the reason why we know this, right, is because before 2,000 years ago, into, I would say, 3,000 years ago, we did have an incredible respect for the sacred feminine. The warriors have had a respect for Isis, Ishtar. The divine feminine goes even way back farther than that, 10,000 years ago. You'll see Neolithic paintings and little sculptures like the Venus of Willendorf is a good example of that. So we as a people did revere the sacred feminine and understood why we revered her, because she was the temple of life, right? It's fucking common sense. When you're seeing a whole life popping out of a woman's body, any idiot's gonna go, yeah, wow, hello, this is a goddess. It's goddess energy. Well, no shit, because this is a woman that's holding a soul, an entire being in her body until it's time to release it. That's magical. It should be respected, but it's been bastardized. Women working for until the very day they're about to give birth. Women who are doing that not out of choice, but they have to do it because there's not enough money. They have to work until the 9th month, or a month before, or even a week before. That's not the fault of the masculine. It's the fault of the system. Okay. And so the masculine has to realize that to protect his woman, right, the mother of his children, he has to fight against the 1%. And if his woman is against him from the giddy up, then that fight is a uphill road. He'll never win. He'll keep rolling down the hill. So we need each other for the greater good, right? So we can thrive as a people. What else did I want to mention that's important? So, I did mention that in my last live yesterday about the Menendez brothers. But I want you to pay attention when you go see the documentary. It is fucking hardcore shit. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of the clips you're seeing on TikTok are not in that documentary. But what I did see with these young men, and remember, a lot of the men we are with, well, not me, but you. I was with a man who was a boomer. None of these men, the Menendez brothers, are an example of men who cannot speak about it. They cannot speak about it. The idea of accepting that this happened to them, if you look at the Menendez, the last thing they wanted to do was talk about it. The last thing they wanted to do was expose their own trauma and the fuckery of their mother and father. There are a lot of women going, oh, poor kitty, poor kitty. Women, stop. There's a lot of documentation that she also was a perpetrator, not just a witness. All right. But when you see these two young men who are like trying to figure out how to not expose that, not speak about it, not that was the last thing they wanted. Anything else would have been better, including the capital punishment. I'm not kidding. Shows us on a collective how men can't talk about it. And I've worked with clients all over the world who can't talk about it. And they talk about it with me, not because I'm great, because I happen to be a woman who's willing to honor and give them sacred space so they can talk about it. With no judgment, with understanding that our bodies is an organic machine. And because it's an organic machine, how it responds to manipulations, you get my drift, is not part of the consciousness or willingness of the person going through it. Period. End stop. But that right there collides. That truth of the organic machine collides with the consciousness of a growing child into young, teenage years and adulthood, to mind fuck that individual into thinking that somehow, some way they wanted it. It's confusing as fuck. And because they can't talk about it, because the shaming, again, I draw you back to what happened to the Menendez brothers. Saturday Night Live was doing skits on this shit. It was bad. It was a bullying on a mass scale I've never seen. And so now you can understand why men don't talk about it. I had a girlfriend who was graped, since we have to use fucking grapes as an example of grape, because we've been muzzled like dogs, who was, at the age of 21, they were hitchhiking with a girlfriend. So she had a very masculine energy about her in terms of the file what I'm about to share with you. And so they were hitchhiking. That happened to her. And it didn't happen to her girlfriend, but it happened to her. And for 27 years, she did not say a word about it. She told her girlfriend, don't ever fucking say, don't even mention it to me. Don't say, it never happened. And as we were doing womb healing circles, she came to me privately one day and said that this had happened to her. So it was a massive relief of letting go of that. But let me tell you something about that. Because she was holding on to this trauma in her womb, in her heart, somatically, she had a baby with that energy. Her womb was stained by that memory, that incredibly toxic memory. And this is why womb healing is so important, especially you guys who are young enough to do all the womb healing clearing, energetic clearing, recalibrating, so that it's kind of like having a dirty nursery, the walls, and it's all kind of messed up and you've never done the work. So yeah, of course the baby will survive, but wouldn't it be better to clean up that beautiful nursery called the womb and get it all ready for this child that one day you want to have? In the interim, if you've not been able to do that, as I did not do that, by the way, just when I was, when I got pregnant, I didn't know this. I didn't do this. So as I did my own womb healing, it was a remote healing to the past, filtering into the Akashic records and repairing what my son had to endure in my womb because I had not prepared the nursery, aka my womb, for his coming, because he was planned. And yet I still had not done the work. This is called energy work. And it's called remote healing. Why is it remote? Because you're going back into the past, clearing the debris that was not done. In other words, my point is it's never too late. But for those of young ones who have not had the joy of pregnancy, I have to tell you, I never felt more beautiful ever in my entire life, except when I was pregnant. Never, never, never. Not since, not ever before. So if you know you're going to one day have children, I urge you to do womb healing, trauma releasing, somatic healing, and to prepare so that one day when you're ready, that nursery, that temple, aka nursery, that womb is pristine, okay? But you understand? It's pretty intense. I can't watch the shaming. That's worse than their trial. Exactly. It was disgusting to see it was acceptable. It was mob rule. Best advice, Tony. Thank you, my love. It was mob rule. And mob rule has been used throughout the centuries in countries all over the world. It's not a particular American thing. It's a human toxic thing. And that's it. We have shadows that are very dark and toxic. All of us have it. But the beautiful thing, I have to say, is that all of us who are here right now, and many of us spread across the world, who are self-aware like we are, and really seeking to be self-realized like we are. We're thirsty to be self-realized, right? And we're working on it really diligently. We're doing our best, but we're aware of our bullshit. And that right there, that's ascension. That's part of the ascension. You're never going to fully heal until you drop this body and you go through this incredible letting go of all some scars, and the final clearing is done. For some of you, there's a process. And one day I'll explain it, because I saw it with my twin. I saw the many things he had to go through to do the final clearing of the personality, egoic personality that he embodied in this incarnation, and most likely other attachments from past lives where he had to go through various healing through the light beings. Okay? And then finally, when it was done, he came to me. And he was done. He was fully in the higher dimensions. And waiting for me. Waiting for me with no rush. Meaning waiting for me going, I'm ready. I've got you. I'm here. I'm helping you. This is good. I finally got everything you were saying. So for many of us, death is the healing, the final healing. So don't beat yourself up because you feel like you still are dealing with a lot of shit. Don't be hard on yourself like that. Just know that the very fact that you actually know what the deal is in your own shit that you've carried for multiple incarnations, you're aware of it, you're handling your business, you're doing your best, and that's the end of it. That is actually quite good. That's actually better. Look at the world. Look at every leader, Trudeau, Bibi, Harris, Biden, Macron. These people are definitely... They're definitely, can we all agree, they're absolutely unaware. Fucking clueless of their shit. Clueless. And arrogant about it, too. Have the pomposity to be arrogant about it. Anyway, so I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you so much for being here again. And I'm excited about the time we live in. If I tell you things that I'm feeling that are really intense and in the negative, it's not to say that we're not on the right track. It's to say that as they're throwing rocks at us, as we walk towards the golden age of the new earth, just know that, realize what those rocks are, who's throwing them, and why they're throwing them at us, and just keep going. Just keep going. And the rocks are going to hit a shield, like this invisible shield of protection, and bounce right off you as long as you don't drink the Kool-Aid. For real. It's an interesting line. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Very interesting line. A lot of you know what it's from. Jim Jones. But if you go down that rabbit hole, there were a lot of more complex, nefarious entities involved in that one as well. Okay? So, what else? I was showering and listening. Oh, very cool. I so resonate with all you say. Wow, thank you, my love. So I appreciate that. And I'm glad that it's always good to hear other people who have similar views as yourself, so you don't think you're cuckoo. It's because out there, it's very much like a Twilight Zone show. Many of you will remember that show. It's where, remember the beautiful woman? And all the other people have faces like pigs, and they all think she's ugly, and she's absolutely stunning. And she has to go into surgery, plastic surgery, because they consider her ugly, but she's so beautiful. We're dealing with people who are pigs, and we are beautiful souls. And this is not to kiss your ass. This is just to give you contrast because it's real. And we are dealing with pigs. And I don't even want to use the word pigs, because pigs are actually nice and they're very sweet and loving. What's another word? The lowest level of beasts that you can imagine. And meanwhile, we are beautiful light beings who are actually trying to not drown in the filth of their stories and their psyop and their control. And we're trying to make sure that as many people as possible move out of this slop of lies into the path, the golden age. And that is that simple. It's simple. It's definitely black and white. There's no nuance to this shit. Let me tell you, this is probably the most uncomplicated path in anything I can think of. It's black and white. It's evil and good. That's it. There's no middle ground here. Because if you can't understand that famine, and war is wrong, and you think that that's going to bring your Jesus back, because that's necessary to destroy whole people, corral them, corner them, and then attack them because you're defending yourself. Yeah, if you think that's normal, yeah, you're these bestial. There's a problem. You're mentally not good. Okay, you're not healthy. And for those of us who know this, in a black and white situation, like I said to you guys yesterday, I have actually blocked my my aunt. When people are corrupted, you can't talk to them. There's a point, and I gave the analogy of the rabid dog. Look at my live yesterday. It's on the Menendez. You have to understand that it is sad because there are people you loved and they loved you. And there are people that you grew up with and you have wonderful memories, but it's now over. If they can't see what you see, then it's over. And what's important for you at this point is to find your lost tribe members. I used to say last year, the starseed tribes are gathering. That's the truth. And many of us are from our same soul tribe. In other words, you're like my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, my beloveds, my mothers and fathers. Many of you are my tribe, soulmate tribe, meaning you're from my same village. We're all soul, for the lack of a better word, blood related. More so than the people who you are related in this incarnation. It's hard to first accept that truth, but once you get into the habit of discernment in that truth and becoming more transcendental and understanding the concept of bonded soul tribes, then you'll understand that today this is your mother and father. And maybe your mother's a soulmate of yours and you know it. Maybe it's your father. Maybe you're lucky and it's both. Maybe it's none of them. And that's not to say don't give them compassion. And I'm certainly against turning your back on them. But just like you would a child that can't read or write, you would never be mean to them or ignore them or ghost them or gaslight them. You can still give them compassion and your love, but you don't give them your soul and your sense of right and wrong. You don't hand that path to anyone. It is yours. That's your compass. And your compass, you don't just pass it around. This is your compass. You hold on to that. And it's connected to the divine. Okay? The one of 1,000 names, the one who created us all. And that's it. And you will have to learn how to give them boundaries, but lovingly, with compassion, because they honestly don't know. It's almost like it's like talking to someone with dementia. You would never slap them around and put them down. You would never do that, right? So don't do that with family relatives. I'm not a big, I don't like to do that. But with my aunt, the reason I blocked her, just so you know, is she came at me like a rabid dog. And so I'm not here to be attacked either. It's a two-way street. And she's too old. Okay. And she knows better. She's got a PhD in psychology. So when somebody has that kind of training and comes at me like that, they know better. They're the elder than me. And they have the educational background on psychology to know better and come at me like that. Like I know that person knows what they're doing. And at that point, this is the rabid dog syndrome. And that's when you go, we're done here. No more discussion. But there are other situations with brothers, sisters, parents who are fragile, who have to hold on to the matrix. It's all they got. And who are you to tear that out of their hands? You have no right. Does that make sense? I want to make sure I clearly explained the contrast. And if it doesn't resonate with you, I understand. It's okay. It's not easy. Now that I'm not on the mind meds, I feel this so much, that rabid dog. I have to go. Love you. Love you too, Beth. Sometimes it's too hard and we have to let go and love them from a distance. Yes. And if they need your help, you go give it. Does that make sense? You go give it. Like my mother. Okay, she was sick. My brother was ghosting her it's a long story and I won't get into that because it's not about family laundry, though I'd be happy to tell you, but not today. And so I was flying every other fucking month. No, actually almost every 5 weeks. And finally I brought her home to die. And this was a great healing opportunity. And I helped her. I was her death doula. And I could go into details one day of what we did. And I might do a video on that because I think it's very helpful for people. Because there's an art to being a death doula. And hospice care doesn't always understand what to do. There are qualities of hospice care. And those of you who know what I'm talking about. And right? So you want to give them the mercy and compassion that they could not give to you, because you can help them release a lot of karmic entanglement by doing that, actually, and helping them self-realize in ways that needs to be self-realized, right? So to ignore them is really shame on you, because they need you more than ever. People like that usually are terrified of dying, by the way, terrified. And they're trying to make peace with the fuckery they did, maybe to you and other people. And so the best thing you can give them is mercy, compassion, and help them on their way out of this troubled incarnation. Okay? All right. I hope I was clear, because I'm not the person who's going to tell you ghost your parents, like this dude that wears blue eyeshadow telling people if they're voting for Trump, block your parents. That's some toxic fucking shit. Who you vote for does not define your relationship on a spiritual level with your family, your parents, whatever. It is their fucking business. If they want to do what they're doing, by the way, I'm not against Trump. I'm just using that as an example of what this person said, who is a pedo instigator, okay? On the side note, and this is known. This is not like hearsay. But what I'm going to say to you is, just don't do that kind of shit. Like, try to figure out where they're coming from. And mostly, a lot of these people are so entrenched in the matrix, and they're seeing what's happening, and it's almost like the floor is collapsing beneath their feet, and they're terrified because the false foundation that they lived their entire incarnation is collapsing, and they're terrified. And your job is not to, at that point, abandon them. Especially if they're on their deathbed. Your job is to be there, to hold their hand, to kiss their foreheads, to put a picture of them as a little child on the opposite end of the wall at their feet and say, Mommy, Daddy, look, heal that little child that was afraid. Heal that little boy, little girl. That's your job, to be a death doula at that point. And take it seriously. Okay? It's very good for you to do that. All right? All right. I think I'm going to go now. Absolutely. Sometimes it's too hard and we have to let go and love them from a distance. Absolutely. Okay, good. Okay, so sending you much love on your journey. We will be back, I don't know, maybe today. I know on Thursday I have a special guest. I'm so excited. I have to try to figure out the timeline. Then I'll advertise it on my profile page. You'll see it, or you'll see it pop up on your feed. And we're going to be talking about holding space for your voice, okay, and how to do that, and how to kind of shake yourself into becoming an influencer on the planet for the right reasons, not to buy an eyeliner or lipstick, but which there's nothing wrong with that. I am a fan of a good red lipstick. Don't get me wrong. I will never put that down. But some of us are not born to influence that. We're born to influence other things, the consciousness and the awakening of the planet. And so that will be our life tomorrow. On Friday, I have another special guest with Andromeda Flame about special needs. She's a PhD in psychology, special needs kids. And she will also be offering 30-minute free consultations. So if you know someone who's got a child that's going through, and the family's going through the bullshit of IEPs and so forth, you definitely don't want to miss this live. And then me, Rachel, and who is an amazing healer, and I forgot the other person, Rachel. Fuck. We're going to be doing a live on homelessness. And that's once we figure out the time and day, I'll let you know when that is, okay? So I'm really, really excited. That's me, son with severe autism. I'd like to attend. Jilly Mary, it's tomorrow. No, hang on. It's Friday. Oh, fuck, I got to look at my calendar. It's Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern time. It's going to be Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern time, this Friday, okay, with Cosmic Canary, who's a PhD. Andromeda Flame is also a PhD. She's a medical doctor. And then there's me. And so if you want to, I've never spoken to you before. Thank you. I'll be there. Good. Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. Bravo. Thank you. So I'll do a little flyer, one of these little art things with that announcement. And I'm really excited because your instincts as a mother is something that you're being asked to develop. And it is not just because you have a child with autism or ADHD or whatever the hell diagnosis they've given you. It's also because in many incarnations, you did not trust your instinct. You always trusted authority figures. And so going against the machine and using various modalities of healing for your child is what I'm an expert on. Okay? Because I've been in the battlefields and I've won cases. I'm not joking. I became like a paralegal because I had to. And so between all three of us, it should be an amazing, passion-filled, action-packed live, okay? In fact, all these lives are going to be action-packed because we have amazing high priestesses and goddess. Rachel is a powerhouse in her own right and a magnificent healer and a loving soul, a global galactic soul. What does that mean? No fucking racism, no gender-bending bullshit, no bullshit, just what is the best thing for this particular person, incarnation? What is the best thing for the collective? And this is what we are as high priestesses and goddesses. Sorry, guys, I'm not a crone. I'm a goddess. I earned my fucking medals, okay? I reject crone. Who created that term crone? Just think about it. I'm a fucking goddess, and I deserve it. And women of my generation need to reframe what that is. Because if we look at the concept of crone, this is me going on a tangent like usual. It doesn't look good, doesn't it? Have you ever seen a crone? Do you know what they look like? Do they look good? And I don't mean crones on this planet. I mean drawings of crones. What do they look like? That's my point. But we can be ageless high priestesses and goddesses, right? Every single thing that takes a woman's power away to shine has been done for centuries, and we have adopted them like a banner, a flag to wave in the wind. And there are certain things we're going to have to start rejecting and going, that's not what I am. No, I don't believe in New Age. It's ancient wisdom. There's nothing new about it. There's things we're going to have to start reframing as we collectively create the new earth. It's that simple. All right, my loves, we'll see you tomorrow. Namaste. Be well.